Thank you. Welcome to our 2024-25 MFSP presentation. It crept up on us pretty quickly this year. Thankfully, I know that you are all in need of some extra funding right now, so glad to be able to get it out the door a little bit sooner. So most of you already know me. Between the monitoring and the final reports, we have been in a lot of communication lately. So it's been nice talking with all of you, but I am Stephanie Robinson, the statewide food access liaison with Hunger Solutions / Food Group. And then also joining us today, I can't see if she's on yet, but we have Liz Riley. Are you here, Liz?
I am here. Happy to be
There
here.
she is. Hello, welcome. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'd love to. My name is Liz Riley. I work at the state of Minnesota. I'm part of the food programs team at the Office of Economic Opportunity. I work primarily with the USDA TFAP and MFSP programs. So with food shelves and food banks and tribal nations like you all on the call today. And Courtney Russler is a name and face you might be familiar with from our office. She is still with us. She's not able to present today. So she is the supervisor of our team at this point.
All right. Well, we are going to go ahead and get started with the presentation. We're going to ask that you hold all questions until the end of the presentation. We will do a little Q&A at the end of the presentation. So this is our MFSP for this grant year. I am, as I've introduced myself, the main contact for the MFSP grant for the food group / Hunger Solutions. And Courtney, who is not with us today, is the main MFSP contact for the DCYF OEO office, but we have Liz here with us today.
And I'll just add that Nora Gordon is on our team as well, and she'll be watching the chat and taking notes to capture everything, and we'll be able to send follow-up as well from questions and things in the chat that come up today.
All right, so a little bit about Hunger Solutions. As most of you are aware, we joined forces with the food group on March 1st of this year. So the grant funding will still come from Hunger Solutions, Minnesota, and staff and communications about that will be from the food group. So you may receive communications about the grant from Hunger Solutions or the food group.
And to keep things interesting with all the name changes, we also have some name changes at the state of Minnesota. So our Office of Economic Opportunity was traditionally a part of the Department of Human Services, which recently split into three, is in the process of splitting into three new departments. So as of July 1st of this year, so just a few weeks now, we are now part of the Department of Children, Youth, and Families. So the new acronym you will be hearing is Minnesota DCYF OEO. To keep our alphabet soup going. But we are still the same office and a lot of the same folks working there and same programs, but it is under a new department at the state of Minnesota. So DCYF will now be replacing DHS. Our emails at the state will stay the same, but some of the more centralized websites or any kind of generic from the Department of Human Services emails may have new updates in the coming months as the transition continues to roll out administratively. Go ahead. So as Stephanie said, we're really excited to have you all here today and to share some updates about the program, the Minnesota Food Shelf Program and grant for this year, 2024-2025. So I'm just going to give a little background and launch us, and then Stephanie will dive into some more of the details and the specifics. So we're happy to share some updates about some of the continuous growth and improvement and evolution of this MFSP grant. It's a really unique program that we have in Minnesota that supports our food shelves in our states. Not many, if any, other states in the country have this local state funding to support hunger relief efforts in this way. This year, we have a record $7.5 million in funding to distribute to food shelves across the state. So to give some background, this program has been around, this grant has been around since about the 90s. And in more recent years, the average funding really landed around a 1.5 million. As you all heard, in 2023, we had that increase to 4.25 million for ongoing permanent funding, which was a huge win through legislative efforts. So that 4.25 million will be the ongoing base funding for this program moving forward annually. But in addition to that, this year, the legislature passed an additional 3.25 million on top of that 4.25 million, bringing us to 7.5 million that we get to distribute to you all for the great work you're doing across the state in response to the huge needs we've seen and the increasing demand that you all see every day on the front lines. So we're really excited to be able to support your work with these funds through this MFSP, it is a mouthful, grant. As a reminder, the state fiscal year is the grant year. So that is July 1st through June 30th, which is why we're here today, launching out the information and getting the application ready to go for distribution in the fall. And then if you want more details, the MFSP state statute, that is what kind of this is all written in, is available online as well. If you want to go to the next slide. So as a reminder, it's a non-competitive grant. It is an online application, as it has been for the last few years. So it will be moving back to job form, which I'm sure Stephanie will talk about for the time being, as we continue to explore the best format for the online application. But you do need to apply online. The applications will open in a few weeks, actually a week, August 1st, and it'll be open for about 3 weeks, closing at the end of August, August 23rd at 11:59 p.m. So you will need to make sure to be getting in and getting your application in. You will see some updates in that form as well. And then just a reminder that this grant is administered by Hunger Solutions on behalf of the state. And we're really thankful for this partnership between Hunger Solutions and the state, and now Hunger Solutions and the food group and the state. And for all the great work that Hunger Solutions and food group team has been doing to administer the funds, distribute the funds, make sure everyone has the information they need, gets the reports in, and has questions answered as we move through the process to make sure these funds can get where they need to go to support your programs across the state. So while it is largely administered by Hunger Solutions, you will see some communication coming from both DCYF as well as HSM. So get used to those alphabets. Back to you, Stephanie.
All right. So the funds are distributed as they have been in past years. Majority of them in proportion to the number of people served. So your service statistics that you submit monthly. So the grant amounts will range from a minimum of 7,500 and a maximum of 150,000. So in past years, we've done like a base where it's a base per brick and mortar. This is not that. So all of the stats from all of your programs, your mobiles, your brick and mortars, any distribution that you're doing will be rolled up into one payment per agency or tribal nation. And so the minimum that grant would be 7,500. So if your stats were under that, you would still get at least the 7,500 and then the maximum of the 150,000. Again, all of your stats will be rolled up, and one disbursement will be made per agency. So if you're a new grantee, if you do not have the 2023 program stats, then you would be eligible for the minimum funding only. And so agencies with 501c3 status in tribal nations are eligible for this MFSP grant if you currently participate in TFAP and have a program ID with your regional food bank, not a requirement for tribal nations, obviously, and are in good standing with the food bank. So if you've done, your monthly stats and you have them in for July 1st of last year to the present, and then have satisfied those grant reporting obligations. We have talked, all of us have been talking very frequently about these reports. So thank you. Majority of you have already gotten all of them in and are all set to go for the new grant year, but just with us expediting the timeline, it's extremely important to have those in. Who is not eligible. So, distribution sites, agencies, or tribal nation food shelves not in good standing with TFAP or with your regional food bank. An example of that is if you're not doing your monthly service statistics. Distribution sites or agencies that are not registered as an approved TFAP provider or TFAP approved with their food bank. Distribution sites, agencies, or tribal nation food shelves with outstanding MFSP final reports after July 29th. And this is why, part of the reason why I was very much in contact with you trying to get those reports is the software that we were using is actually going away. So it won't be an option at all to submit the reports, and you'll just be out the grant if you have not done that submitting. So this year, especially, it's always very important, but this year especially, it just won't be an option to submit them. So on-site meal programs and backpack programs, those are also not eligible for this funding. And then the same as prior years, the funding is really flexible, pretty much whatever you need for your food shelf. So you can get foods, your culturally relevant foods, equipment, your staffing, space and rental, transportation, all of that, your outreach, translation, hygiene, diapers, technology, pretty much anything you need to run your food shelf is an allowable expense with this grant. And then your TFAP ID numbers, I think for the most part, everyone that's been here last year, we kind of got, we got in a rhythm with these. But your food bank ID is the number that's given to you by your food bank. It might be on your invoices when you place food orders, or like if you log in online, you might see that ID number there. There's some examples here of what it would look like. So if you had the food group, your number would start with TFG, and then there would be 4 numbers after that. And then for Second Harvest, the numbers typically are a C, and then 4 numbers, and then a dash. Followed by usually a 1, 2, 3, 4, however many programs you have there. And if you can't locate that number, please reach out to your food bank representative for some assistance. All right, so we are required to verify that your organization is listed as an active nonprofit with the IRS. I know I worked with some of you this summer, just getting those numbers in. If you operate under an umbrella org, so a lot of churches, for example, are under like the ELCA. And in that instance, you would want to use their federal tax ID if you're listed underneath them, because the number that you have is probably, you may have an EIN, but it's probably not federally registered as a tax exempt number. And that's why we would need that umbrella organization number. And if we are unable to verify that the ID that you submit is currently active with the IRS, then you're not considered an active 501c3 and you would not be eligible for the funding. So it's really important, just if you're underneath another organization to, and the application actually does clearly ask for both IDs, or if you're underneath another organization to submit that ID. But if you have further questions, you can always reach out to me and I can help you through that process. All right, so the final, oh, no. Yes, sorry. The grant period is September 1st to June 30th. So it runs the same, it'll run the same spend down as it always does on the fiscal year. So they have to be spent down by June 30th of 25. The final report submission is required for everyone, just documenting how the funds were spent. Hopefully it'll be a little bit easier this year with only one payment per org. And those final reports will be due no later than July 11th of 2025. In past years, we've sent out that final report right away when you get your award letter. This year, it'll be a little bit different. There will be an actual reporting period. So we will reach out spring 2025, and it'll be available on our websites as well. And we'll send it out in newsletters, emails. But we'll have a reporting period opening in spring where you can fill out the final reports for this grant. And then anytime once you spent the funds, once the spring, letter has gone out letting you know, or with the link to the report, you can complete it. You don't have to wait until the last day or until the deadline. You can always do it as soon as the funding is spent, once the report is open. All right, back to Liz for a moment.
Yeah, so grant monitoring. In addition to final reports, we really want to emphasize the importance and some of the what might feel like changes, though it isn't new changes, but because of the increase in funding, more sites will be required to be monitored and others may be monitored. So just to reiterate the importance of maintaining clear and accurate documentation and records for however you're spending the funding. All grantees are subject to monitoring by Hunger Solutions or the state. And at a minimum, we will be doing all those sites that are receiving $50,000 or more. But again, it could include other sites. All of that monitoring will take place either virtually or in person, and we will be reaching out to you to schedule those. And that would happen during the grant period. So it would be happening prior to the end of the spending period, which is June 30th, 2025. So more information will come with that, but just really wanting to emphasize the importance of tracking and keeping clean records on how all dollars are spent so that when we do come out to monitor, you have that all ready to go and hopefully it will be pretty smooth sailing. And then just to also reiterate the definitions that we've kind of been using and in this presentation and that you'll be seeing moving forward and in the application. As we all know, there's a great diversity in how programs operate across the state, from brick and mortar to pop-ups to mobile outreach programs. So we're trying to simplify and streamline some of those definitions to hopefully support some additional clarity and accountability and make funding streams and accountability really clear who is connected to who. And so we're using these two definitions, agency and distribution site. And grants, as Stephanie said, will be going to the eligible agency or tribal nation. And so that is the eligible tax-exempt 501c3 tribal nation that is sort of the overarching agency for the different sites. And then distribution sites is the term we'll be using for all of the variable, in this case, TFAP sites. So whether they're a brick and mortar food shelf, a mobile program, all of those. Various types of distributions are considered distribution sites, and there'll be a space on the application to include information about each of those sites that are operating connected to an agency. And all of the stats, again, as Stephanie outlined earlier, from each of those distribution sites will be rolled up and factored into the calculation for the agency. If there are questions about that, feel free to follow up in any particular unique situations, and we can try to help clarify as well.
Right, how to apply. So we will have an online application. It will be jot form this year. As I stated, the grant software is going away. It was meant to make things a lot easier for you, but I think it just made things more difficult. So we're gonna go ahead and go back to the jot form. Online application will be available no later than August 1st, so next week. It'll be on our website. We'll send out emails. The DCYFOEO emergency food provider update will have the link as well. And then I will also make sure that it is my auto reply on my email in case for whatever reason you missed it or didn't get the newsletter. Just send me an email and it will auto send you back the link to the application. And then we're only doing one application per agency, but there is space on there for you to just list your other programs. So we make sure that we get them all rolled up into your stats, but you would only have to submit the one application. And then just another note that applications for multiple distribution sites connected to the same agency or tribal nation would not be accepted. And then, as you're all aware, we have also, once the MFSP funding goes out, usually a little bit later in the fall, we have the emergency grant, and then we also do the cultural collaboration grant. The cultural collaboration is a competitive grant, so that means it is a scored application. And that one's aim is to support organizations with 501(c) status and tribal nations to kind of expand their food program services to BIPOC communities. And that one is 160,000 total. It'll be distributed to the eligible agencies and tribal nations located outside of the 7-county metropolis area. So in past years, we've received a lot of applications from like Hennepin County, Anoka County, Ramsey County. Those ones are auto denied just because this is kind of for the more rural show. So those outside of that 7-county area. And then nonprofits and tribal nations with food shelves or mobile programs are eligible to apply for one cultural collaboration grant. And that is up to $10,000. And the application may be fully or partially funded. And then we'll distribute those funds late fall. And some of the things that people are eligible to purchase with those funds are culturally relevant foods, expenses associated with multilingual, multicultural staffing, transportation expenses, outreach, translation. It's also pretty, if you have a different idea, you can always submit that as well in your application. As I said, they are scored, so we'll look at everything. And then the emergency grants, again, $5,000 are made available to assist in responding to emergency situations that hinder your ability to serve your community. So like flood, fire, loss of other funding, equipment malfunction, those type of things. That grant pool is a little bit smaller. So the maximum grant we do on that one is $5,000, but that will open late fall. And then emergency grants are also competitive, so they're scored as well. Just and we, rank the emergency, and those will open late fall, and then that one's kind of a rolling grant, so it just stays open until the funding is expended. And then look out for more information coming from that. Following the MFSP, we'll start sending information about that out. And then here's our timeline. So the 17th of this month, our reports were due. Today, we are all here present in our webinar. So next week, August 1st, the application opens. August 23rd, the application will close at 11:59 p.m. And then early fall, we'll do the information and application for the cultural collab. That'll go out. And then emergency grant will open late fall. And we anticipate funding going out October 1st or when funds are available. So as soon as we have that funding, we will get those funds out to you. So thank you for everything that you do. I've had a chance to check in with a lot of you lately, and I know you're working really, really hard to keep people fed. So we really appreciate you, and we're happy to support you in providing for your community.